Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao was just standing there quietly, and there was a faint smile on his face from the beginning to the end. However, a dash of coldness flashed deep inside his eyes. The beast god, Di Qian. Impressive, Di Qian. Torrential tides were set off inside his spiritual sea. Huo Yuhao gradually drifted into view there, and he swiftly calmed down the raging tides that his 4 powerful spirits had started. All 4 of them trained their eyes on him. Don't be worried. Huo Yuhao's calm voice traveled throughout his entire spiritual sea. Yuhao. The Sky Dream Iceworm was panting, and his breathing was thick and heavy. Huo Yuhao's eyes suddenly became very majestic and dignified. Don't worry. Since I have triggered this for the first time, there will be a second time, and there will be a third time. Do you guys trust me? All 4 spirits were starting at him. The star anise mysterious ice grass was the first to transform into a beam of flowing light and land on his body. It didn't have that many expectations and hopes when it chose Huo Yuhao, therefore, it also experienced the least disappointment. Faced with Huo Yuhao's calm and formless pressure, it instantly made its choice. The Ice Empress, the Snow Empress, and the Sky Dream Iceworm were all looking at Huo Yuhao. The Sky Dream Iceworm muttered under his breath, but a chance like this is only likely to come by once every 1,000 years. Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, I'm a soul sage, and I seem to have found a very minute part of the solution. Furthermore, even Di Qian can only obstruct me, but he cannot obstruct the heavens. Not even the beast god can stop the heavens. Therefore, he was 1 step behind me today. All 3 soul beasts trembled at the same time when they heard his words, and their eyes flowed with incredulous looks. Huo Yuhao's majestic eyes gradually became full of fervor. Furthermore, there's another solution. All 3 soul beasts' eyes widened at the same time. What other solution was there? Huo Yuhao slowly clenched his fists. His spiritual sea riled up once more with him as the epicenter, but his spiritual sea was rippling with a rhythm this time. His immense spiritual power circulated rapidly around his body as a whirlpool. That is to defeat Di Qian. To defeat Di Qian. These 4 words were simple, but who dared to say something like this in the world today? Who even dared to think such a thing? Di Qian was the strongest individual in the world, after the gods. He was the Doluo continent's #1 savage beast, and he was possibly the strongest individual across the entire Doluo continent. He was a golden-eyed black dragon king with 800,000 years of cultivation. He had almost obliterated Shrek City all by himself. With his strength, how many people dared to challenge him, and how many people dared to claim they could defeat him? The beast god, Di Qian, had reached the highest possible strength that one could attain in this world a long time ago. However, when Huo Yuhao uttered those 4 words seriously, all 3 powerful soul beasts felt as if those 4 words were real. Huo Yuhao's tone didn't contain any outrageousness or arrogance, there was only seriousness, perseverance and persistence. Defeating Di Qian was Huo Yuhao's target for the future. If someone who didn't know him, or someone who didn't know about his experiences heard his words, they would burst out laughing. A human who wanted to defeat the beast god one-on-one, that was simply a joke. Even the strongest human that people knew about in the world today, the dragon god Doluo Long Xiaoyao, wouldn't say something like that. The stronger one became, the more one knew about how difficult it was to become stronger after a certain level. The beast god was someone who had gone through 800,000 years of cultivation to reach his strength today. Only an ultimate Doluo, and other individuals of that strength, could guess exactly how deep Di Qian's foundations were. However, Huo Yuhao made this claim, and he definitely wasn't joking about it. He was very serious. 10 years ago, he was a child inside the Duke's mansion, who didn't have proper meals to satiate his hunger. However, now, he wasn't even 20 years of age, and he had already become a soul sage. A soul sage with twin martial souls. This cultivation speed was one of the fastest across human history. He had invented spirits, and founded the Spirit Pagoda. He had become something like an imperishable monolith in the history of soul masters, and his name was spread across the entire continent with the Spirit Pagoda's establishment. Every soul master knew his name. He possessed powerful spiritual power, and even with his 7 soul rings, his spiritual power was stronger than that of a titled Doluo. Furthermore, he also possessed ultimate ice, a truly formidable existence. Huo Yuhao seemed exceptionally gifted in every aspect and characteristic. However, only the Ice Empress and the Sky Dream Iceworm, who had always been by his side, knew how much Huo Yuhao had given, and how much effort he had put in throughout the entire process. Only they knew how much determination and resolve he had to achieve everything that he did. Huo Yuhao had displayed resilience unmatched by normal people ever since he began fusing with the Sky Dream Iceworm. After joining Shrek Academy, he cultivated hard with inferior talent and innate abilities compared to everyone else. Huo Yuhao had gone through so many ordeals and trials during every step of his life. Huo Yuhao had had to watch the woman that he loved the most enter a deep slumber with his own eyes, and he had to watch another girl that loved him dearly offer her life for him. Every leap forward that Huo Yuhao's strength took was accompanied by uncountable pains and toils. But he had taken everything in his stride on his journey. Huo Yuhao had truly grown up today. He wasn't that small blade of grass that swayed in the rain and the wind, he had grown into a robust and large, sturdy tree. Even though he was only a soul sage, nobody dared to claim that he wasn't someone who played a decisive role, and one who held a balance of power on the continent. He was the youngest member of the Sea God's Pavilion, and a human that the great Star Do Forest had sworn to protect. Even the beast god, Di Qian, had had no choice but to monitor him, though he didn't dare let him communicate with powerful individuals from another world. When he uttered those words, that he wanted to defeat Di Qian, the first thought that appeared in the 3 soul beasts' minds was, he will definitely work as hard as he can to reach this goal. Everything seemed impossible, but was it really impossible? How many things had Huo Yuhao done that were impossible for normal human beings? Huo Yuhao himself was like a monster. I'm sorry, Yuhao. The Sky Dream Iceworm lowered his head, and 2 rows of tears flowed down his cheeks. Huo Yuhao didn't release his tightly clenched fists, but his voice became a lot plainer than before. There's nothing to be sorry for, brother Sky Dream. I can understand what you're feeling inside. I hate what's happened to me too, but hatred can't achieve anything. All I can do is become stronger continuously, and one day, when I have enough strength to defeat the beast god, I will make the reverse scale that he has attached to my body disappear. That day will be the day that I will take you guys into eternity. This is the goal that I have chased and desired my entire life. Furthermore, I trust that this goal is definitely not too far away. The Snow Empress' icy voice rang out. We will always accompany you as long as you still have that fighting spirit. Good luck. After she finished her sentence, her wise and ice-cold eyes became crystal clear once again, and the little snow lady returned. She transformed into a beam of white light, and disappeared into Huo Yuhao's body. The Ice Empress nodded and said, the Snow Empress is right. As long as you have the will to fight, we will always be your strongest and most determined supporting strengths. Good luck, Yuhao. The Ice Empress pulled the Sky Dream Iceworm's hand as she spoke, and they flew towards Huo Yuhao together. They vanished into his body inside his spiritual sea. A plain, faint smile appeared on Huo Yuhao's face. He raised his fists and silently gazed into the distance. Di Qian. I have to defeat you one day. Yuhao, how are you feeling? What happened? Bei Bei asked in concern from beside Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao had told him that he was all right before he descended into deep contemplation. He was all right, but how could he be all right? That power of darkness didn't belong to Huo Yuhao. That power of darkness suddenly appeared in a place like this, a place filled with light energy. That was highly unnatural in the first place. Huo Yuhao's body trembled as if he had awoken. He glanced at his companions, who were watching him with concerned expressions, and smiled as he shook his head. I'm all right. That came from some power that the beast god Di Qian has infused into my body. That power is meant to protect me. It might have sensed that my aura was starting to change, so it appeared to protect me. I'm okay now. Are you sure? Bei Bei asked a little doubtfully. Why do I feel that that aura didn't come out to protect you? Huo Yuhao shook his head and smiled. Eldest senior brother Yu, third senior brother, and fourth senior sister have successfully fused with your respective spirits. Congratulations. This time, your strengths have been greatly boosted. We should be going, right? Bei Bei could tell that Huo Yuhao wasn't willing to tell him. He gave Huo Yuhao a serious look before he tilted his head slightly and said, all right, let's go then. Little junior brother, if you have any problems, you have to tell me in time. Even if the Tang sect can't resolve these problems for you, we can still find Elder Xian. Huo Yuhao heaved a faint sigh inside. Not even Elder Xian could resolve the problems in his body. Everyone exited the spirit-transmitting hall. Bai Ji was still waiting outside, and she inquired about the process when she saw them walk out. She felt relieved when she heard that Shu Sanxi's spirit transmission was smooth and successful, and she personally escorted them out. The spirit-transmitting hall was still being constructed, and it wasn't appropriate to receive any visitors, so Bai Ji didn't ask them to stay behind. Bei Bei stared at Huo Yuhao as they stood at the entrance to the spirit-transmitting hall. Yuhao, you guys have to be careful on your journey. It's the same thing every time. Safety first, always. Huo Yuhao nodded faintly and replied, you too, eldest senior brother. Don't force yourself if anything out of the ordinary happens in the setting sun forest. You can wait for me to return, and I'll go back there with you. Bei Bei smiled and said, don't worry. If the Tang sect can't even deal with a patch of toxic miasma, then we would have grown so much and so long for nothing. Depending on the situation, I might even bring teacher Xian along on my journey. He has been working too hard, and has tired himself out too much over the past few years. It's time for him to change his mood and his environment. Who knows? This journey might be beneficial for him in breaking through to become a titled Doluo. Huo Yuhao's eyes lit up as he said, it can't get any better if teacher Xian follows you. Xian Zuan was a Class 8 Soul Engineer, and very close to becoming a Class 9 Soul Engineer. His soul tools were very powerful, and he wouldn't be afraid of any dangers if Xian Zuan followed Bei Bei to the Icefire Yin-Yang well. Huo Yuhao just wasn't sure to what extent the plants and herbs over there could help those two dark golden terraclaw bears grow. Bei Bei bid farewell to everyone, and then flew in the Tang sect's direction by himself. He had to go back and prepare as quickly as possible before he would set off on his own journey. Huo Yuhao turned around to his companions and said, all right, let's go, too. His destination was, of course, the Star Luo Empire's front lines. Shu Sanxia laughed out loud, and released his martial soul proudly. He stared at his red soul ring, and was as pleased as he could be. Having 100,000-year soul ring was very impressive for soul masters. Furthermore, 100,000-year soul beasts didn't just provide soul rings, they also came with soul bones. The golden tortoise shell that had fused into his shield of the Xuanwu turtle before this was the soul bone that the golden tortoise had given him. Furthermore, this soul bone was the most valuable soul bone, a torso bone. For defense-type soul masters, torso bones were much more important than skull bones. Shu Sanxia couldn't wait any longer, soaring into the sky after releasing his martial soul. He was a soul sage now, and could fly through the air without using flying-type soul tools. He was an exhibitionist and a show-off at heart, so how could he give up this opportunity to try flying out? Shu Sanxia flew into the sky, and pulled Jiang Nan Nan along with him. Jiang Nan Nan was a lot more reserved than he was, but she didn't reject her first time flying as a soul sage. Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu activated their respective flying-type soul tools and followed closely behind. Jing Ziyan and Ji Juechen followed suit. Huo Yuhao led everyone as they surged into the sky at the same time. Tang Wutong was relatively closer to where Huo Yuhao was. As everyone was rising into the air, her voice suddenly appeared in his ear. You're lying. Eh? Huo Yuhao glanced subconsciously at Tang Wutong. She had compressed her voice into a single line. Dorma didn't seem to possess such a level of control before. Tang Wutong glanced at him with rather sophisticated eyes, and took the initiative to fly up next to him as she whispered, "You were lying just now." "What did I lie about?" Huo Yuhao asked, confused. Tang Wutong sounded a little proud as he said, "You were just lying about the beast god protecting you with his strength. If he were protecting you, how could he sever your interaction with the god realm's aura? This opportunity only comes once in a blue moon, and it can even trigger a godly appointment. If the beast god's strength was protecting you, it should have been protecting you from being disturbed by others." Huo Yuhao stared at her in surprise. He was very sure that Tang Wutong was Wang Donga, except that she was a little different from how Wang Donga was like before. He could see Wang Qiu's shadow in her from time to time. However, even though Donga had lost her memory, she seemed to have gained knowledge that she didn't have before. "How did that happen?" Tang Wutong giggled and pressed, "I'm right, am I not? Why are you lying?" Huo Yuhao smiled and said warmly, "Why should I tell you?" Tang Wutong said threateningly, "If you don't tell me, I will expose your lie to everyone else, so that everyone will be unhappy with you." Huo Yuhao laughed and said, "You're just like a child." "Who are you calling a child?" Tang Wutong raged. Huo Yuhao laughed again and said, "What's wrong with being a child? Innocent and devoid of evil, I like how you're behaving right now." Tang Wutong was momentarily stunned when she saw the love and concern in his eyes that he didn't bother masking. She blushed and quickly said indignantly, "You lecher. Are you asking for a beating? Are you telling me or not?" Huo Yuhao said plainly, "Actually, it's nothing much. I just didn't want everyone to worry for me. The beast god, Di Qian, did place some restrictions on me. You're right, he wants to stop me from interacting with that illusory god realm. What can I do? I can't defeat him, and I can't resist him. If he's stopping me from doing so, then so be it." Tang Wutong glared at him with her large and pinkish blue eyes. Her long eyelashes were quivering gently as she asked, "Do you know how important that statue that you were in is for your future?" Huo Yuhao smiled faintly and replied, "Haven't you told me already?" "Of course I know." Tang Wutong said, "Then why are you acting so indifferently? Since you've missed this opportunity, you may not come across another one in your entire lifetime." Huo Yuhao answered, "You have no faith in me. But I have a lot of faith in myself." Tang Wutong was a little upset. "You're so dense and unreasonable. I'm too lazy to care about you anymore." She stretched out her wings behind her back as she spoke, and beat them forcefully as she flew towards the front. Huo Yuhao's mood was a little suppressed before this, but he suddenly felt his spirits lift as he watched her charming back and her flowing pinkish blue hair fluttering in the sky. For him, what Tang Wutong had just said to him was a form of concern. "Donga, even though you've forgotten about me, are you still subconsciously concerned about me? Actually, everyone doesn't know this, but being able to be together with you is more important than becoming a god to me. Brother Skydream and the others have their hopes placed on me, and I will definitely work hard to become a god, but you are always the most important in my heart. No matter what, even if you've forgotten who I was before, I will definitely bring us together again as we are now." Huo Yuhao's butterfly wings stretched out behind his back, and he accelerated as he chased after Tang Wutong. He flew behind her without going too fast or too slow and watched her enchanting back. For Huo Yuhao, this was the best form of relaxation for his mind. Tang Wutong continued flying in the front. She didn't interact with anyone else, because she wasn't familiar with the others. The more she flew, the more she felt as if something was wrong. She subconsciously turned around, and was met with Huo Yuhao's mesmerized eyes. She trembled, and almost lost her balance in midair. "What are you looking at?" Tang Wutong was beside herself with fury. Huo Yuhao answered, "I'm looking at you." "Why are you staring at me so lecherously?" Tang Wutong said ferociously. But she was just too beautiful, and even though she was deliberately trying to put on a ferocious and wicked outward appearance, she was still so cute in Huo Yuhao's eyes. Huo Yuhao felt amused as he said, "What? I can't look at you. I'm just flying behind you, So isn't it normal that my eyes are on you? You're not allowed to look at me. Tang Wutong raged. Huo Yuhao put on a speechless look and said, but if I don't look at you, what's going to happen if I crash into you? You can't ask me to close my eyes when I fly. Tang Wutong grunted coldly and said, you'll fly in front of me and stare at the air by yourself. Huo Yuhao didn't argue with her. He nodded and said, all right. He immediately flew in front of her in a flash. Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu were flying together not far from where Huo Yuhao was. Nan Qiuqiu was pouting, and a little displeased as she said, look at them, they are flirting in public. HMPH. She lost her memory. I think they are just putting on a show. Yi Gai shook her head softly and said, try to be unbiased, pretty girl. Are you interested in him too? You should be able to tell from his eyes that he can't possibly like anyone else other than her. Is one-sided love so interesting? Nan Qiuqiu giggled and said, you're trying hard to convince yourself by saying all that, right, Sister Gai? I wasn't paying attention to Huo Yuhao's eyes, but I saw a lot of yours. Ever since he came back, your eyes keep turning towards him carelessly. What are you trying to do? Yi Gai blushed and retorted, why can't I look at him? Nan Qiuqiu laughed and shot back, you can look at him, but you can't have him. Aren't you worried? Yi Gai grunted and suddenly sped up, as she surged towards the front and said nothing else. There was a faint trace of helplessness in her eyes. You may like someone, but that someone may not have the same feelings for you. However, even though she knew her feelings wouldn't lead to anything at all, she still couldn't help but yearn for him. Perhaps that was because he was simply too outstanding, and he had attracted her attention ever since the beginning. Ever since then, she couldn't notice other men at all. The truth was, Yi Gai didn't know how many times she had chided herself gloomily to walk away from her one-sided love, but discovered that she couldn't do it at all. The more she wanted to walk away, the deeper his figure was imprinted in her mind. She gave up trying towards the end. It's like that already, if I like him, then so be it. I'm liking him while I'm cultivating at the same time, anyway. She didn't have any family, and nobody would hurry or urge her to find a man. She spent most of her time and energy cultivating, and she would let nature take its course with her feelings and love. Smoothing her state of mind and keeping peace with herself was a lot more comfortable. Thinking about Huo Yuhao from time to time was a kind of bliss for her, especially after he returned. Her happiness was more conspicuous when she saw him. She didn't wish or hope for anything at all, and was just staring at him quietly. She realized that she was quite satisfied with how things were. She had mocked herself, she had felt speechless about herself, but so what? She would have walked away from her feelings a long time ago if she could. Wang Chua was so outstanding, but even she couldn't move his heart, and she even sacrificed herself to save him in the end. I have never done anything for him, so I'm just going to bury my feelings for him deep inside my heart. Maybe, after a long time, these feelings will dampen, and I will naturally forget about them. Or, another man that can move me will appear and take his place in my heart. Yi Gai didn't have much faith in the latter. Finding someone who was more outstanding than Huo Yuhao seemed a little challenging. Huo Yuhao naturally didn't know about the changes in Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu's mentalities. He was flying in front, and still wore a faint smile on his face. His spiritual power was powerful, and he could clearly feel that there was a pair of pinkish-blue eyes trained on him from behind. Whether I am watching the person I love, or the person I love is watching me is a kind of happiness. It's so nice that Donga is back. Tang Wutong followed behind him and stared at his back. She couldn't help but start to daydream. She didn't know why his flying type soul tool seemed so familiar. He was just flying in front of her quietly, and he clearly wasn't doing anything, but he seemed to integrate into the air around him, as though he were part of that air and space in the first place, while she and everyone else were outsiders. Has this fellow really reached such a high level? No wonder, he can actually interact with the heavens and the earth. He's quite impressive, that's a pity, because he's not a good guy. Tang Wutong had firmly branded Huo Yuhao as not a good person ever since the first time he had hugged her. At least, her impression hadn't changed much for now, and several adjectives could be added. At most, he was a scoundrel who had extraordinary abilities. Or, he was a scoundrel who possessed some strength. Both guys and girls couldn't help but feel interested and curious about the unknown or mysterious things. Huo Yuhao was like that to Tang Wutong, and she was starting to feel interested and curious about him. This person seems to have uncountable hidden secrets. Furthermore, those secrets seem to have something to do with me. Tang Wutong wasn't stupid. More accurately, she was incredibly intelligent. She had already heard of Huo Yuhao when she first came to Shrek Academy, because everyone believed that she and Huo Yuhao should be together. She was furious at the beginning, and figured that everyone in Shrek Academy had gone insane. But with the passage of time and more people saying the same thing, she could faintly feel that. Perhaps someone that looks like me is related to that fellow. But can someone really look like me? When Huo Yuhao first appeared in front of her and embraced her, Tang Wutong was completely dazed, and she had immediately lashed out at Huo Yuhao. She knew that she didn't have a good temper, and if someone else did what he had done, she would probably have fought with that person until one of them dropped dead. When she first encountered Huo Yuhao, even though she had lashed out at him because she was angry, she couldn't feel any lethal intent in her heart at all during her attack. She even felt a little soft during the fight. She didn't understand why that had happened, but her heart seemed to soften uncontrollably when she looked at that fellow's eyes. This was the same even when she had labeled him a scoundrel, and it seemed like there really was some connection between the two of them. Tang Wutong found all that hard to believe, because this person had never appeared before in her memory. It was even more impossible that they were acquainted, or had any interactions either. She shook her head forcefully, and her wavy pinkish-blue hair fluttered in the sky behind her. I'm not going to think about him anymore. I'll just ignore him in the future. Tang Wutong was thinking like that to herself, but she still couldn't help but look at him. She stared at his tall and slim figure flying in front of her, and she felt the gentle soul power undulations that were spreading from his body. For some reason, she couldn't shift her eyes away. The weakest individuals in their group were soul emperors, so nobody had any problems flying continuously for a prolonged period of time. They flew for about 2 hours before Huo Yuhao suggested for everyone to come down and rest. They had entered the Star Luo Empire's borders, and needed at least another 2 hours before they reached the Star Luo Empire's western regions. They would be very close to the front lines. Everyone had started out very early in the morning, so they were a little hungry when they descended to the ground. They retrieved their respective rations and drinking water and began eating their own meals, and everyone rested at the same time. Shu Sansha and Jiang Nannan were in a jovial mood. They had just become soul sages, and flying through the air without any soul tools felt fantastic. One soul power rose exponentially after one became a soul sage, and the soul sage could unleash his or her martial soul true body. The soul sage would also experience a qualitative leap in fighting strength. They were gifted and elite students from Shrek Academy in the first place, and they had just become some of the strongest individuals of the younger generation after they became soul sages. They had also closed the gap between Huo Yuhao and themselves. Huo Yuhao didn't go over to Tang Wutong's side. He believed that even if Tang Wutong had lost her memory, she would have Dong's personality from before, and him taking the initiative to get closer to her wouldn't result in anything good. Furthermore, he wasn't worried at all. For some reason, he was starting to enjoy the feeling of gradually awakening Dong's memories. He had made a decision in his heart long ago. If I can't make Dong remember me, then I will let her fall in love with me all over again. No matter what happened, he wouldn't leave her side this time, and he would follow her wherever she went. Their priority now was to execute their mission. Huo Yuhao munched on his rations as he contemplated in silence. Should I directly reveal my identity to the White Tiger Duke on this journey to the front lines? It's quite inevitable that I'll run into Dai Luoli when I'm there. I wonder if that fellow has sold me out yet. Probably not. Luoli has some stubbornness in his personality, and he's not one to compromise easily. Hopefully the White Tiger Duke won't see through everyone. An indescribable discomfort arose in Huo Yuhao's heart when he considered looking for the White Tiger Duke directly, according to Elder Xian's instructions. Some time ago, he could have confessed his feelings and thoughts to Wang Donga at least. But now, who could he talk to? He could only silently endure this heavy burden by himself. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath, and placed his rations down before he closed his eyes and started to rest, leaning against a large tree behind him. Even he didn't know what to do at this moment, even with his extraordinary intelligence. If Elder Xian hadn't given him instructions, he would have returned to Dai Luoli's side and continued serving as Shu Yun's personal guard. He believed that with his abilities and strength, he would be continuously promoted if he participated in battle. However, just as Elder Xian had said, his strength would undoubtedly be wasted if he did that. He could participate directly in the war and be a lot more effective than otherwise. His spiritual detection could reach an extraordinary distance. Just how much help could he give the Star Luo Empire? Forget it. I can't affect the entire empire just because of my desires and wishes. Even though Huo Yuhao had never thought that the Star Luo Empire had given anything to him at all, it was still his home country. I'm just going to look for the White Tiger Duke directly. He doesn't know who I am, anyway, and I'll work hard to help the Star Luo Empire resolve their troubles before anything else. I can use other methods in the future to realize my wish. Huo Yuhao finally reconciled his thoughts, and he exhaled deeply as he opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he was met with two large pinkish-blue eyes staring at him, which startled him. His mind and his energy were too concentrated before this, to the point where he didn't release his spiritual power. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed when he suddenly saw Tang Wutong's eyes. However, the shadow that had just arisen in Huo Yuhao's heart vanished into thin air when he saw her. As long as she was around, any trouble or challenge didn't seem like much of a problem anymore. Huo Yuhao smiled at Tang Wutong and nodded gently. Tang Wutong immediately turned away, and she chomped down on her rations forcefully, as if she were eating his flesh. Huo Yuhao finished his food before he crossed his legs in a proper sitting position and started to meditate. Even though his cultivation speed was already incredible, his hard-working attitude and the habits that he had formed over the years never changed. Everyone rested for an hour before they returned to their journey, flying straight towards the Star Luo Empire's borders. Huo Yuhao took everyone over the outskirts and the wilderness so that they could avoid unnecessary trouble. Of course, they could do this because they were inside the Star Luo Empire. If they had been inside the Sun Moon Empire, there would still have been hordes of surveillance soul tools blanketing these regions, and they would have been quickly discovered. They continued flying for a little more than 2 hours before they started to enter the region considered the Star Luo Empire's western borders. There, they were quickly met with blockades. Everyone had no choice but to descend to the ground after revealing their identities. The Star Luo Empire soul engineers that had stopped them told them that the entire western border was locked down, and nobody could fly in or out. Otherwise, they could very easily be attacked. The company had no choice but to descend to the ground and move forward on foot. They were a lot slower as they moved along the ground, and only arrived outside Imperial Radiant City, which Huo Yuhao had been to before, in the evening. What do we do, Yuhao? Do we enter the city? Shu Sanxia asked Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao thought for a moment and said, forget that. The front lines are very jittery and jumpy right now, and the Star Luo Empire is very sensitive. What if they treat us like spies again, and interrogate us? Why don't we pick up the pace and go directly to the front lines? I know where the White Tiger Duke's base is. We can rest again when we're there. Imperial Radiant City was less than 200 kilometers from the front lines. Even though they couldn't fly, they only needed 2 hours at most to reach the front lines with their abilities and strength. Shu Sanxia nodded and said, all right. Let's rest for a little while and have something to eat before setting out. They didn't want to create any misunderstandings with Imperial Radiant City, so everyone just proceeded through the wilderness for a while before they found a small creek in the hills, and stopped to rest. Huo Yuhao found this creek with his spiritual power. The men didn't feel much about this creek, but when the ladies saw this clear and transparent stream, they all exclaimed joyously at the same time and pounced at the stream. They all squatted beside the stream and washed their hands and faces, and were very happy. There were too many women, and too few men in this operation. Huo Yuhao, Shu Sanxia, and Ji Juechen were the only men in their company, while Ji Juechen was an enigma, and didn't like to talk. In contrast, there were 5 women, Tang Wutong, Yi Gai, Nan Qiuqiu, Jing Ziyan, and Jiang Nan Nan. Jing Ziyan's looks were slightly inferior to the others. The 4 other girls were exceptionally pretty and beautiful, though Jing Ziyan could also be considered delicate and pretty. The sun was setting in the west, and the sunset glow far on the western horizon tainted the edge of the sky crimson. These colors reflected off the stream and shone onto the girls' faces. This glow brought out everyone's charming looks even more. Their cheeks and faces were red and rosy, and looked incredibly enchanting. Shu Sanxi's reaction was most evident. He swallowed audibly before nudging Huo Yuhao beside him and said, "Little junior brother, can you tell that Yi Gai and Nan Qiuqiu both seem to be interested in you?" Eh? Huo Yuhao was momentarily stunned. He had guessed that Yi Gai seemed to have some feelings for him, but Nan Qiuqiu had hated him in the past, and her attitude changed a little only after he saved her and her mother. He didn't sense anything about other things at all. This video will end here.